What's going on, everyone? Welcome, episode 67 of Poppitt's Corner. I got we're going up all the way to Portland, Oregon today. We're going to start speaking with Gabe Franco of Idle Hands. How you doing today, sir? Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, what you call it? The basis of the show. I'm going to go through your entire career and hopefully, you'll help me fill in some of the gaps that I may be missing. And if you're ready, man, I'd love to get started with you.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I always like to start here with all the guests and ask pretty much your first recollection, I guess, of just hearing music for the first time, and I guess, what was it?
Well, I mean, you hear music growing up just on the radio and stuff. And I would record stuff I heard on the radio. Like, I had songs I liked, like Alien Ant Farm and stuff. I would record it onto, like, a little tape, in a cassette player, and I had a cassette of my favorite songs I heard on the radio to play back, but that wasn't really my start of love for music. I'd say it kind of happened when I heard Cradle of Filth doing a cover of Hallowed Be Thy Name by Iron Maiden, and I didn't know who either band was at the time. My parents didn't listen to metal, and I didn't have any friends who listened to that kind of stuff yet. But yeah, I just heard that song, and I wasn't even aware that music like that could exist. I was kind of blown by the fact this guy was just screaming his lungs out, and the guitars and everything were just so crazy. And after that, it just kind of took off from there. I got into Cradle of Filth, Dimmu Borgir, Arch Enemy, At the Gates. Those were my big bands in high school. And I started with death metal and then kind of worked my way back. Met some friends who liked Judas Priest and Metallica and stuff like that, and Iron Maiden, and they introduced me to that kind of music, which at that time I was calling that stuff rock and roll, because I was like, that's not metal. I'm listening to way heavier bands than that, and then you kind of realize how dumb what you're saying is. So,
right.
Yeah. So Cradle of Filth was one of the big ones for me.
And
got me into music.
And when did you decide that you wanted to pick up an instrument? And I guess, what was your first instrument?
My friend Donnie had a Fender Stratocaster, a Mexican Fender Strat, and I would go to his house and we'd learn like songs we liked. Like, I specifically remember, like, we'd just sit outside trying to get Wi-Fi on his laptop so we could go to ultimateguitar.com and look at tabs.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were trying to learn like Block Party, like Hunting for Witches by Block Party. It's got a cool little guitar lead. Stuff like that. And eventually I was like, hey, Donnie, he had a bass too. I was like, can I borrow your bass? And I took that home and learned the Hallowed Be Thy Name bass line. And eventually I was like, hey, man, can I borrow your guitar too? And then I borrowed his guitar for like a couple of years, I remember. And that's how I learned. And so my mom bought me a guitar for Christmas, and then it kind of just spiraled off from there. I gave him his Fender Strat back, but years later I was at the store and found another Fender Strat for $160. It's just a cheap Mexican one, but it's the best guitar I've ever played. I love these things. Like, I write all my music on a $150 guitar.
That's
and
awesome.
I used it to record all the clean stuff on Mana. It's just got a great tone.
Absolutely.
So,
you can't go wrong with a Fender Strat. But so I'm wondering, why did you take more towards the bass? And I guess because your career, you spanned it, your majority of it is playing bass.
Yeah, it was easier at first. It was just what I learned. And mind you, I always played bass in my bands, but I always had several guitars at home. I was always writing music on guitar. Bass was just kind of what I did in the bands. I don't know. I kind of just established myself as a bass player. The reason I didn't plan on that either. I started my band in high school called Seventh Gate. We were kind of a melodic black metal, death metal, thrash kind of band. Basically, I wanted to be Cradle of Filth. And I had a bassist who just wasn't cutting it. So I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I was singing already. I just kicked him out and sang and played bass at the same time. And then because I was playing bass in that band, Spellcaster came around. They were called Leather Witch at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, you know, they needed a bass player, so like, hey, you play bass, come here. And then all of a sudden I'm playing bass for 8 years. But right when I got the chance, I went back to guitar with idle hands pretty much. So
Absolutely, and we'll get to the idle hand stuff obviously way later. But I want to go back
yeah.
earlier and ask, you know, your first time in the recording studio. What was it for?
That would be for Seventh Gate, Under a Black Sun EP. We recorded it. That's before I kicked my bassist out. His dad played guitar in this Portland punk legend band. Like they're called Poison Idea. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, he played guitar for Poison Idea for a while and was kind of connected in the music scene. He had a friend named Howard. I don't know his last name, but his name was Howard, and he lived in Vancouver, and we drove up there, and he recorded our stuff for free, just as a favor to our bassist dad. And, yeah, that was the Under the Black Sun EP, Under a Black Sun EP.
Now, was this the first time that you used a click track at all, or was it done without one?
No, we didn't use click track, yeah. We didn't use a click. I mean, I didn't know shit about recording, you know. It was like, we just like, hey man, drum. Okay, let's try and play it to your drum tracks now.
And you were in high school, did you say, during this time?
Yeah, we were still in high school. We were 17 years old.
Wow. Okay, so then the EP comes out. Is there an actual kind of scene in Portland at this time?
Yeah, we'd play house shows, and we played at the Satyricon back when it was open, kind of a legendary punk, you know, rock and roll venue here in town. And we played a few venues around town. I think all in all, Seventh Gate played like 20 shows or something. And we just kind of fell apart because my other guitarist wasn't cutting it, and my other guitarist, he wasn't interested as much anymore, and my drummer got some girl pregnant, and at the same time Leather Witch came along and was like, hey, we need a bassist, and you know, there's a label, Heavy Artillery Records, they're interested in signing us and stuff. And I'm like, cool, fuck this, I'm out. But I always kind of look back on that decision. I'm like, was that a good idea? But at the end, it led me here, you know. But I kind of put myself in a back seat when I joined Leather Witch. I was like, cool, I don't run this band. And that kind of, you know, I'm a guy who moves fast, so I kind of slowed myself down. And I think I could have gotten further faster, but I think I learned a lot of really valuable lessons from being in that band for so long.
Well, so give me one lesson that you learned.
Patience, I guess. And well, let me think. The most important, attention to detail, I think, is something I didn't do a lot before. And I mean, you just learn. There's just so many things, you know. There's so many tiny little things to, I don't know, making good music and, you know, having a band that people care about. You know, it's the little things.
And when you say attention to detail, are you referring to songwriting? Are you referring to like production?
Everything, everything really. Yeah, like basically the more time you put into something, the higher likelihood that you're going to be successful if you know what you're doing. So, you know, if you write a song, it's like you sit there and you solo over it for 10 hours, you're likely going to get a better solo than if you did it for 5 minutes. Now, that's not always the rule, but you got to put in the work.
Right.
I don't know. There's just so many things. Like, there's so many lessons I learned, you know, like how to book shows and, you know, how to properly email people. I taught myself how to use Excel. At this point, you could probably pay me to do Photoshop stuff because I've gotten so good at making show flyers that I've taught myself Photoshop. You know, it's just like all these little things, you know, how to print merchandise, how to properly create various types of files, and just spreadsheets and emails and all this crap that comes along that a lot of musicians don't, or a lot of aspiring musicians never think they're going to have to do. And it's like, in this day and age, you have to do it all. Like,
Absolutely. Even finding the
yeah.
right record producer to work with is hard. That's the
Yeah,
lesson I'm on right now.
yeah, it's really difficult. I will tell you right now, your best record producer is yourself, because I mean, 9 times out of 10, small time engineers, like guys who aren't hired by major labels and stuff, who are just kind of independent, they're they're just listening to you. They're not really producing your record. You're the producer. So if you know how you're doing, you know what you want to do and how you want to do it, and you know how to say no. That's the most important thing, learning how to say no. You can come out with a good record, but really, like, yeah, I mean, you're your producer. You know, no one cares about your music more than you do. So you got to go into everything with that mindset. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's go to the name change of Leather Witch. You changed the name to Spellcaster. What was the reason behind it?
We just figured there was too many bands with the word witch in them. It was like Acid Witch, Witch Haven. They're really good friends of ours. We love Witch Haven. But, you know, it's like Witch Cross, you know, there's so many witch bands if you look it up. We're like, we got to stand out a little bit more. So we had a song that was called Spellcaster, and we were like, why don't we just call our band Spellcaster? And that was that. So.
And you kind of changed from, obviously, during this time it was mostly like a speed metal, heavy metal kind of version of Spellcasters. So I guess walk me through. You recorded some, like a demo and an EP, I think, before the actual Under the Spell record came out, but I kind of want to move directly to the full length, and this, because this was kind of like your guys' first full length, and especially in your career, this was, I believe, your first, and correct me if I'm wrong, but walk me through the process of your first full length and kind of, you know, what it took to make that record.
Well, like I said before, I wasn't super involved with I was in the writing process, but I was not in charge in that band for the first full length. I was kind of just like, all right, whatever Corey and Tyler and Chad say, you know, they were kind of the 3 main guys, go. So we went in the studio, I recorded my bass parts, and they did the rest. And, you know, I yelled a few things into the microphone for the gang vocals and stuff, but we recorded it I think it was recorded at Falcon Studios or something like Falcon or Black. It was at Falcon, yeah, where I've done pretty much everything. Falcon Studios with our producer Gabe Johnson, and he's the guy who did Idle Hand stuff. And just hammered it out. I mean, I think it was a fairly short process. We got $5,000 from Heavy Artillery to pay for the record, and we were pretty professional at the beginning. It seemed like everything was on top of it, but we got it done, and they put it out.
Absolutely.
Bam, bam.
And obviously you had gotten signed to Heavy Artillery. That deal actually went through. We neglected to mention that. So what was their initial response for Under the Spell when it initially came out?
Oh, a lot of people were stoked on it because, right, you know, at that time, that was 2010, that was like kind of the heart of the thrash revival and the new age of traditional heavy metal revival. It was all just starting there, and Enforcer was just blowing up, and Cauldron was coming around. You name it, all those bands were just starting. Toxic Holocaust was big, Municipal Waste was big. So thrash, heavy metal was cool. And there was a good reception to it. It could have been better if we were better marketers of ourselves, because, you know, the label's not going to do shit. They just put out your record. They don't have the time to properly market you. Most of these labels are just one guy or 2 guys. So they don't have the time to properly put that stuff out. But the reception was good, and I think it could have been better. I attribute that to really message and lyrics. I think if the vocal melodies and lyrics and overall
message of the band was more cohesive, Spellcaster could have been a bigger band, but we could never get every member to quite agree on one thing, and none of our singers were ever the person in charge.
Right.
So it's really hard to get a cohesive vision. You just have like, three guys writing like, wannabe goth stuff or whatever, and then the singer's like, I like Gundam, so I'm gonna throw some Gundam lyrics in there, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Whatever.
Right.
But it was fun. I'll tell you that much. We had a lot of fun. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we were having a lot of fun, and it was authentic,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and then obviously, kind of somewhat after this, Thomas either leaves, or I think he leaves the band, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I guess, was it just conflicting, musical differences, or?
Well, no. I mean, Thomas was a great guy. I really like Thomas, and I still like Thomas to this day. He's a very genuine person and a very real person and nice. He wouldn't hurt a fly, but he was struggling with drug addiction, and we just didn't have the time to deal with that. And eventually we had to kick him and our drummer out because of that.
So walk me through, I guess, trying to find a singer and a drummer at that point.
Well, that was the original plan. We did a tour after we kicked Shad out. I think we kicked Shad out first, our drummer. And so we had to get a fill-in drummer. In fact, I remember why we kicked him out, because, shit was going awry, and you show up to practice, his cymbals weren't there and shit like that. And then we had a show with Vector, and we're like, hey, Shad, shows tonight. And he's like, yeah, I'm not playing that. I mean, we're at the venue and we don't have a drummer. So luckily our guitarist Corey rips at drums too, so he just played the drums, and we just did a 4-man set that night and pulled it off. But anyways, sorry, I digress. We were talking about what were we talking about?
Well, I wanted to walk me through like the process of trying to find a drummer and a singer.
Oh yeah.
During this specific time, because the only accolades or the only things that you had, you could do it through like Craigslist or word of mouth. So how did you guys find your new drummer and singer?
Oh, there was still Facebook. I mean, yeah, we used Facebook a lot. Found this guy Scott DeRosa to fill in for a tour. And then after that, we were like, man, Thomas is kind of sucking too. At the last show of that tour, we played Las Vegas, and he just was terrible. And we were like, man, this isn't working out. He's just not a good singer. Or he's not doing his best because of, drugs or whatever. So we were like, okay, instead of trying to find a new singer, I think we toyed with like a few people who wanted to join or something. I don't remember that very clearly, but after a while we were just like, all right, we know our guitarist Tyler can sing, and we know a guitarist named Bryce who can shred a guitar. So what if we move Tyler to vocals, and we move Bryce in on guitar? And then really we knew this guy named Brian Craybaugh, and he had become friends with Colin Branazan via Craigslist, and they started like kind of a joke band, I think, or like a thrash metal band. I don't remember what it was exactly, but they were kind of jamming together, and Brian goes, oh, this guy rips at drums. You should have him join your band. And so we tried him out, and I remember the first day, I was like, this guy's fucking great. I want this guy in the band. And I think Corey didn't want him in the band. I don't know, maybe because he didn't look cool enough or something. I don't remember. But anyways, I kind of just told him he was in the band after the rehearsal, and I think that might have pissed people off. But that's what happened, and we've been jamming ever since, and he is a fucking phenomenal drummer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys made the right decision as far as that goes. Now walk me through this is you guys are off of Heavy Artillery at this point, I believe, correct?
Yeah. Now we're off Heavy Artillery because Heavy Artillery got sold to Earache Records.
Correct, which then in turn got bought out by Century Media and then Sony, obviously. So,
Yeah.
So you decide to make a record pretty much on your own, which is kind of a ballsy move, after being signed, having a record that is on a label, and now you're doing your next full length all by yourself. So walk me through that process, and was it a hard decision to do it that way?
No, we were still young and stupid enough. All we wanted to do was party. So we didn't care if we had a label or not. It wasn't like what am I doing with my life situation. Everyone was just kind of like, yeah, we go to band practice and we rock, So no, there was no question about the second record as far as I remember. But yeah, it was just the slowest, most painful fucking process ever. After we finally got a lineup secured, we started writing music, and I think those are some of the best songs that Spellcaster wrote, and the worst production. The recording process took 3 months. It was mind-numbing and cost so much money. I funded almost half of it myself. That's when really tension started breaking down in the band, because at that point I had taken over as the de facto band leader just out of necessity. There was a need for one, and nobody else was stepping up to the plate. So I just kind of started telling people what to do and when to come to practice and coordinating things, because I still wanted to do it really bad.
Right.
I don't want to sound cocky, but I do believe that if I wasn't there to hold things together, that band wouldn't have released a second or third record.
So you were kind of like the glue, in a sense, gluing all the pieces together.
Yeah, or more of the cat herder, I would call it. It was like, Colin was always down. He was always into it. Bryce was super motivated. But I think Tyler and Corey started getting a little bit jaded. We're bored with it, after we weren't having much success. So it was a little bit harder to get them to care. But, we got them all in the studio and we did it. And I like that second record. I wish I could re-record it on better production. I wrote more than half the lyrics to that entire album too. That's another thing that was annoying is, I was basically just telling our singer what to do, but of course he didn't like being told what to do, but he also didn't write his own stuff, Or
didn't put in the effort, it looks like. It sounds like he didn't put in the effort to even try.
No, he didn't care. So I would write all the lyrics, vocal melodies, and I'd be like, cool, check it out. I did this, the song Runaway. That's completely,
a great song.
That's completely my lyrics, my vocal melodies. Of course, he didn't nail the vocal melodies to a T. Everything would deviate a little bit off of what it was supposed to be, just because he's not me. So it was kind of frustrating, putting all this work into it, basically writing these songs myself and helping, orchestrate them. A lot of the riffs were Corey and the other guys as well, but man, that was a frustrating time in my life. I don't know why I put myself through that much hell. I honestly, looking back, I probably should have left then, but I still had plenty to learn.
Absolutely. So let's move forward. The reception for it was actually, I do remember this record coming out. I remember the video. You guys did it at the beach, which was kind of cool. But completely independent, and then you guys get an offer from Prosthetic.
I bugged Prosthetic. Pretty much, we're like, hey, please sign us. So I asked quite a few labels, and most didn't even get back to me. But Prosthetic was like, cool, yeah, we're interested. We'll give you $5,000 to record an album, which is just so little money. But if you know how to do it, you can make it work. But yeah, Prosthetic came in the picture. We signed with them in October 2014, and released. Well, we didn't have another record out yet, but 2015 did some touring. Yeah, and put our first Prosthetic release out in 2016,
which was your third and final release.
Yes.
Which was Night Hides the World. Now, now walk me through, because this was a new producer for you guys, right? You had been working with your main guy throughout the first two records up until this point, correct? And then
yeah.
And then you went to I think Zach Owen for this record.
Well, the first record we did with Gabe, the second we did with Joel Grind.
Gotcha. But so these were all local. They were all local to like the Portland area. So, but I'm saying you made the venture to the Bay Area pretty much for this one.
Yes.
What was the reason for the change?
We just wanted a different sound. We'd been working, like in town for everything. Also, Prosthetic wanted a heavier sound, and Zach Oren had done Ex Mortis, who was also on Prosthetic, and I believe he also did Holy Grail. He kind of just knew how to make things tight. He does a lot of like technical death metal and stuff, so he's really good at cleaning things up on the whatever you want to call it, the monitor, and making things really polished. So, and then on top of that, our drummer, his family lives in San Francisco, so we went down there for 10 days or so, and we just lived at their house, and every morning we'd wake up and drive across the Bay Bridge to the studio and recorded with Zach. And little side story, our van broke down on the Bay Bridge one of those days in the middle of like morning traffic, and we had a police officer had to shut down all traffic and then push us in neutral to Treasure Island. So we're going 60 without power, and a cop car pushing me. It was pretty gnarly. But you couldn't buy that. Even if I think for a movie scene that would probably cost millions of dollars to shut down traffic for a minute or two on that bridge. It was crazy, man. It's like holy shit. But so we worked with Zach, and he did a great job. And vocals were in Portland.
Okay. So I was going to say, so the vocals were done elsewhere.
Yeah.
Was this due to a time constraint from the studio?
Kind of. Also, just our singer, Dean, love Tyler. I mean, he's an old friend of mine, but he didn't put in the effort. And basically, he just wasn't ready. And I think he was also more comfortable working with Gabe because he had done his side project band called Wise Blood. And that record sounds amazing. Fucking awesome job on that thing. But he'd done that with Gabe Johnson, and he just liked recording vocals with them. And I agree. I've recorded vocals with Gabe, and it's a nice process. We know each other. So, yeah. But anyways, he went in on all those songs. I don't think he had lyrics ready, like right up until the last minutes, basically. And a lot of stuff was done on the fly. I had written the entire song aria and the first song on the album, and all the lyrics and all the vocal melodies, and handed it to him. And he changed it from a song about death and loss into like a song about breaking up with your girlfriend. And I was so angry. I was like, I've always wanted to re-record that song, and I might do it for Idle Hands, because it did not end up coming out like I envisioned how I wanted it to. It was supposed to be a lot darker. Yeah, but other than that, he did that stuff in Portland.
So and obviously this, the reception for this record was outstanding. The title track alone is great. And walk me through the video process for it, though. The music video for Night Hides the World.
We were friends with the guys in Visigoth out of Salt Lake City, and they did their music videos. Like, we liked their music videos. So we're like, hey, who does your stuff? And they're like, oh, our friend Brock. So I contacted Brock, and he knew who we were and liked our music. So he drove 600 miles from Salt Lake City and met us out 200 miles east of Portland at this place called Maryhill. And there's a Stonehenge like recreation there. And we were like, okay, we'll film in here. We got some fires going, brought everything out, had some snacks, and I set it up like a real video shoot. And yeah, it was pretty cut and dry. We got it done in a couple hours, and it was fun because we were actually like blasting the music really loud through the PA and jamming along to it. And there was, we got a small crowd gathered to watch us too. And it was kind of this weird thing to see in the middle of nowhere, generators out and the band just bashing away. So the people who were there just to visit the monument were like, whoa, this is amazing. This is cool.
So you just set up there with like didn't need permission or anything. You just kind of set up and. Oh,
you need permission, but we didn't get it. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the way we've always done all our shit. It's like whatever.
Rock and roll, dude.
Now going forward, we gotta be a bit more professional now, but
And I loved how the video came out, man. I love how that video came out. It's great for anybody who's listening.
I agree. Thank you. Yeah, I was really happy with Brock's work. He did a great job.
I know. I like the that you added lights because it was so dark or whatever. So that was kind of cool to see. It kind of gave it more of an atmosphere kind of video, which I like. I like the atmosphere kind of videos. Now, like I said, the reception for this record, I believe was great. I mean, I do remember the reception being pretty dang good for Night Hides the World. From your perspective, was it that way?
Well, from my perspective, no. It didn't bump us up. Like, I didn't see interest enough, and that's kind of my meter. Basically for testing. I mean, we were just on a slow upward climb for like 7 years, and Night Hides the World didn't really change that. I feel like, we got to do some bigger tours, and that started, we started getting a little bit more exposure from that, touring with Stryker and Holy Grail and stuff. But, it was, I was just like, well, I'm still here. We're not making any money from music. I was like, okay, what now? I'm proud of the record. As always, though, I thought it could have been better. And that's what I think for all three Spellcaster records. And I will say, just from like not my perspective, but from a numbers perspective, I just go back and look at our Bandcamp listens for Spellcaster or something. It's like 35,000 for our all-time listens or something like that. It's a really low number. The band was well known, but we spent so much time. Like, I always joke, I'm like, if we only knew how to market ourselves and we only knew how to like promote ourselves properly, I could create a band that's bigger than Spellcaster in 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, that's not to sound cocky. That's just like kind of, if we had the knowledge that we have now, kind of thing.
Right. But even though you're signed to Prosthetic, they have, that is you're supposed to be your promotion, but right there, that's what the label is kind of for. But it sounds like you didn't really get a fair kind of shot. I mean, how many bands are signed to those record labels?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of just they put out the record and that's that, and then they own it for the rest of their life. So.
And that's too bad, man. 'Cause it's a great record. But walk me through the artwork real quick. Lastly, on this record.
On the Night Hides the World. That was our first time working with Adam Burke, and that artwork to me is a total mess. I remember we had a band meeting, because like I was managing the band, but I wasn't in charge. It was still a loosely classified democracy, and so we had a band meeting for artwork. I'm like, what do you guys want for art? And everyone threw out their ideas, and it just ended up being this vague, loosely tied, spaghetti bowl of ideas. And we essentially went to the artist with an abstract concept. Like, hey man, can you paint something that like represents like freedom, and like the night is slavery and the day is freedom, but we want it to be like oppressive. Like, you can't tell an artist that. Like, what do you want me to draw, man? So basically
he just, the artist just made that up. We didn't ask for a skull. We didn't ask for a moon. We didn't ask for a forest or anything like that. But that's what we got because we couldn't decide. And ultimately, I think it looks fine. I think it looks cool, but it's just another testament to the lack of direction and the lack of leadership in Spellcaster, and ultimately why it failed. Like, I just want to write some good tunes. Is that so difficult?
Absolutely, man. I totally agree. The music should always do the talking and stuff. But you went on with Silver Talon and did an EP shortly after, essentially with most of the Spellcaster camp.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, we did the Silver Talon EP. That was me, Sebastian, Bryce, and Colin. And that went okay. During the writing process, Bryce and I were kind of, I had two bulls smashing heads, Bryce wanted to do things his way or the highway, basically. He's not a compromising person, and neither am I, really. And I think, there was just I was like, okay, I don't want to be in a band like this. I'm just gonna do my own thing. I was like, I don't know how it's gonna sound, but I got to take complete control. I got to sing. I got to write. I got to do everything for myself because I don't want people crapping on my ideas anymore, basically, And that's what Idle Hands began as, just like, I'm doing this my way. This is my band,
Absolutely, man. And I want to ask real quick too about the name Idle Hands. So how did you end up deciding on that specific name?
Yeah, that was I don't know. Well, it's just the idle hands of the devil's plaything quote came in my head one day. I mean, I thought about that a lot, how boredom can cause negativity in your life. You got to keep busy and you'll be a happier person, or at least you need to have purpose. And so my purpose was writing music, and I was in a kind of depression. After Spellcaster ended, I didn't really know what to do. I wasn't super happy with Silver Talon. And the Idle Hands of the Devil's Playthings kind of came into play there, and I was like, I could just call the band Idle Hands. I looked up Metal Archives. There was no other bands called that. So I was like, there we go. That's the name.
Awesome.
And, that's that.
Now, walk me through, obviously, you had found your team, right? You had found, your recording guys and artwork guys and stuff, and now that you had, Sebastian and Colin on drums and whatnot. Walk me through the Don't Waste Your Time EP kind of thing. How did that come into play?
Sorry, I need some water. I've had a little too much coffee. The EP, that was just written one song at a time, and that was kind of a collection of singles. By the time I finished the fifth one, I was like, oh, I have enough for a release here. I guess I should just bundle them all together. Because Idle Hands was, my original plan was to just release like a pop singer would, one song at a time, music video for every song, promote the shit out of every song. I was like, I love albums as much as the next guy, but it makes way more sense to just put songs out on a song by song basis. So that's what we did at first. And then I was like, well, we need enough songs to put out a record, because I want to press vinyl. And so, we did the EP in Portland and put that stuff out, and that happened.
And how did you actually get signed to the label that pressed the vinyl?
Eisenwald?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, they pressed vinyl for it later. The first pressing was myself through Lone Foot Records. That's my company. I just did a self-release of the vinyl, and then we got some interest from a guy in Germany, and he pressed 200. That was on fucking Kill Records. That was a weird way to go, but 200 records through there. And then I was introduced to Nico at Eisenwald Records through my friend Jake from Uwada. And Nico pressed the vinyl again. So I think there's 4 pressings of it now.
Wow.
In 2 years. So
wow, that's really good. I mean, there's a huge buzz for Idle Hands right now, which is fantastic.
I couldn't be more grateful.
Well, I don't think any of us could be. I mean, it's so important to have a band such as Idle Hands. Now, walk me through your sound itself, because it's kind of a more gothic approach, and and obviously you're more known in the past for just doing like a straight up kind of like heavy metal kind of thing with like super, high pitched clean singing, but this is more of like a gothier side. So walk me through the sound of it.
Yeah, so the Idle Hands sound, where do I start? Yeah, it was just me just screwing around. I kind of wanted to do like a black metal vibe, but with clean vocals. Like, in fact, I was kind of pissed when Ghost started because I had always had the idea to kind of do a band like that. I was like, I want something that's evil sounding and sounds like death metal or black metal or something, but has clean vocals over it and poppy, catchy choruses. And so that's when the idea came up to do like melodic, poppy black metal, basically. And it just morphed into the first song. And after we finished Blade in the Will, I was like, Sebastian, what do you think this sounds like? And he's like, sounds like Iron Maiden and Sisters of Mercy kind of. And I was like, cool, that's a good mix. We'll market ourselves like that. So if you found Idle Hands in the early days, it just said, Iron Maiden meets Sisters of Mercy. And because you got to have a way for people to care. There's so many bands online that, people just click past. But if you can catch their ear with some bold statement, and have the music to back it up, you're going to get noticed. So that's kind of what we pushed out there, and it worked. And now, I mean, the sound is always just whatever I'm feeling like, basically now. I mean, I'm not going to put myself in a box. Yeah, it's just everything I'm influenced by. Everything.
Love it. Yeah, and nor should you put yourself in a box. I mean, you guys literally can only go up from here. I don't see you guys going down. But
I hope so.
I mean, let's get into it. So the first full length, you're still signed, I believe, to the record label at this point, correct? Obviously, who pressed a couple of your EP pressings. Now, walk me through just the recording process of Mana. As I wrote kind of in our band biography, Mana is 8 months for 40 minutes, basically. I was working a day job. I had just gotten married. My time was very finite. I didn't have a lot of extra time, so I'd get off work, I'd practice vocals, write music, come home, eat dinner, work till the last minute, and I had to go to bed, and then repeat. And that was every day. Weekends, I worked all day, every day. And sorry, I'm kind of having a brain fart here. What was the original question? The just like the recording process and the writing process of Mana itself.
Oh yeah. So I was just working every day and just writing lyrics every day, and I mean just nonstop work. And what I do is I take these skeleton song ideas to Colin. We jam them at the practice space, and then he comes up with drums to this stuff, and then we go in the studio, record his drum tracks. And we did that in San Francisco again with Zach Oren, or in Oakland. And then I take the drum tracks home for a month in November, and I rewrite over them, basically. I write the songs for the second time. And this is when they really come to life, because it's more like they're writing themselves. Because if Colin and I had jammed together and built these together, they'd be different. But because he kind of can free flow jam over the chords, and then I come back in and do some precision writing over the completed drum tracks, a lot of stuff comes out that would have never came out before, and the song's able to breathe the way it needs to breathe. Sorry if that sounds too artsy, but it's the way I prefer to work. There's whole sections of songs that came up after we had recorded the drum tracks, like the end of the Dragon Why Do You Cry, the whole countdown and solo stuff, that didn't exist. Like, that was just another like chorus part or something, and I was like, oh, this is boring, so put that part in there, and after that rewrite. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask, it's because you had mentioned that songs are able to breathe, and that's important, that I don't think a lot of bands kind of tend to do is in their writing thing is having breathable parts in their songs. Everything's just so like on 200 BPM an hour, and there's no song involved, there's no melody, there's no this. And I think what you do with Idle Hands is how in my opinion, somebody should write a record nowadays. Do you know what I mean? Because you can still use. You can.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And it's how I do it with Madrasta or whatever. Is that's my approach too. So that's why I always love good songs, and I feel like how do I explain it? But yours is just like a darker sound, like more gothy kind of thing. Like you said, Maiden meets Sisters of Mercy and stuff. And I want to know how you promoted the actual record, because now all the control is in your hands.
Oh yeah. I mean, same way I was promoting myself before. I mean, actually, no, now you're making me remember things. Yeah, so there was a huge deadline for that record because I had the entirety of 2019 planned out before it was done. So I was working with this European booking agent, Bruno, and he was a good friend of mine. And I was like, dude, I want to tour for like 3 months. Book me 3 months of shows. And he's like, that's way too long. I'm like, okay, fine, 2 months. Book me 2 months of shows. He's like, okay, all right. You know, basically we had that going on. Then he got us on this Tribulation tour with Gull's Word too. And we had just planned 2019 out as basically our kickoff year, our launch year. And luckily this pandemic didn't happen last year. You wouldn't even know, you know, a lot of people wouldn't even know about Idle Hands. But we just toured our asses off. We did a West Coast tour with Haunt to start off the year, which literally we finished Mana the day we left for tour. We had our packed van with all of our gear ready to go to California to start the tour. In the parking lot of the studio doing some final mix stuff, we finished up, got in the van, and hit the freeway for tour. It was up to that last minute. And did that West Coast tour with Haunt, came back, had a couple weeks at home, went to Europe, toured with Tribulation and Gull's Word, came back home for a month, went to Europe for another month and a half or 7 weeks, and then came home for the summer. And then during that European tour is when we got hooked up with our current management and stuff, and our current booking agents, and they got us on that King Diamond tour, which was just life-changing. We couldn't be more grateful for that. That was just the craziest thing any of us have ever done. And then, yeah, I mean, that was just like kind of the promotional plan for Mana. I had more planned for this year. We were supposed to do the Decibel tour. That's not happening. So it's just writing right now. I'm doing drum tracking in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. So are we going to, obviously we're going to get a new Idle Hands record. Now. Yeah,
I have like 17 songs ready to record for drums. And then summer, I got to do pre-production.
Well, so what are you going to add differently, I guess, into this record as opposed to Mana?
Nothing. I mean, it's going to be a different record, but it's just written the same way I would do everything else. I think you're going to see basically the natural progression of my and my bandmates, you know, songwriting ability. You're going to see a progression in Colin's drum playing and the way we structure songs, and but it's very much going to be an Idle Hands record.
And when can we expect this? Well, when can we expect this too? Like maybe 2021?
Probably early 2021. Yeah, because you know that's another thing we prefer not to just put it out and sit at home. We prefer to put it out and tour on it. So early 2021 is probably when it's going to come out, but that's also realistic for any time frame because I'll probably have it done in like fall. And then it takes 3 months or so for final plants to get the pressings done and get everything ready. And it's never a good idea to release something right before Christmas, just because a lot of people aren't paying attention around that time. So we'll probably put out the second album in January, February.
Love it. I'm stoked for that, dude. Well,
and even sooner than that, we'll have a few songs here within the next month or two. I'll have a couple songs that I'll put online.
Absolutely, man. Well, Gabe, thank you very much again for giving me, a couple minutes of your time. It's now we have now hit the hour of the interview.
Okay, yeah.
So I know you wanted to keep it.
I'm getting kind of scatterbrained here.
No, it's all good. I know you wanted to keep it, a little shorter than this, but like I said, there's a lot of info. So I appreciate you giving me a couple more minutes of your time to complete this as 2020 as we talk in 2020 right now. But before I let you go, man, tell us your links. to Idle Hands and where people can
Oh,
find
yeah.
the Mana record?
All of our handles are just Idle Hands PDX for all social medias. And, for our records, just for Europe, go to Eisenton.de, and America, loneforrecords.com. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, another edition of Poppitt's Corner. I'm out of here, guys. Cheers.